Welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing my thoughts on a video I watched recently by the lovely Dr. Boz, where she shares her confusion and despair over two DEXA scan results that were done about 10 months apart. The results showed that even though her weight had gone down slightly, her fat mass had gone up and her lean body mass had gone down. Hi, I'm Sue. If you've not visited my channel before, I've been eating a sometimes carnivore, sometimes ketovore diet since May of 2022, and although I've had amazing healing and health benefits, my weight loss has been frustratingly slow. What I've realised is that almost a lifetime of insulin resistance is probably why I struggle so much to drop weight, and I'm on a mission to learn as much as I can about how all this works so I can change my body composition and lose the rest of the excess body fat that I am still carrying around. Now, one of the people that I love to listen to when it comes to learning about ketosis and insulin resistance is Dr. Boz. If you've not come across her, you're not doing the right searches on YouTube. She's awesome. I've watched heaps of her videos over the last 3 years. I've done her sardine fasts and I've learned loads from her about ketosis and insulin resistance, especially recently. But when I stumbled across a video where she was talking about her unexpected DEXA scan results, I couldn't help but ponder what might be going wrong with what she was doing, because she fasts like an absolute machine every week and she does an amazing job of keeping her body in ketosis. Now, the video that I'm talking about was from late 2023, so I'm not sure if she's done any further DEXA scans or updates at this point, but I still wanted to have a look at what might have caused her unexpected results, and I wanted to share my thoughts. I also want to say that I know I'm no expert, I'm not a doctor, I'm still very overweight, and so I'm not having a dig or criticising Dr. Boz in any way. As I already said, I love what she does, but I wanted to make this video because what I see in Dr. Boz's dilemma is probably common, and there are just a few things that stood out to me that might just give you something to think about if you find yourself in a similar situation. Let's have a look at the piece of the video where Dr. Boz is showing what her DEXA scans revealed.
All right, so I'm going to be a little vulnerable here, so be nice to me. I am like a lot of you. I'm going to first point out that this says that I'm only 5'2", but I'm 5'2.5". And they ask you to say, they say, how much do you weigh? And like any woman, I lied and said, well, that's what I want to weigh. So they type it in, and they don't tell you that, I mean, they do. I kind of knew, but I still said what I wanted it to be anyway. You're going to lay on a table, and they're going to weigh you. So they're going to get the right metric anyway. So let's start by showing you what the numbers were last year when I did this scan. And I just got back from keto camp, so it's not fully a year. I mean, last year it was done in July, and this year KetoCon was in April. But from then to then, I have these two numbers. And the first thing you'll notice is that you're right, 30% body fat. Well, it sucks. It's not, doesn't suck. It's just, I'd like it to be better, and it's not. But I thought, okay, I've got room for improvement. We were just about to start our first 21-day course, and I knew that that was going to really help me and other people. You'll know that what I told them I weighed and what I actually weighed did not match. And then it says, well, how many pounds of fat do I carry around? And how many pounds of lean muscle mass do I have? And then what's my bone density? My bone density was 2 times above the standard deviation. So I have very nice dense bones. I'm sure it's from the sardines. But then April came around, and well, I'd done a lot of things right since last July. I'd done the first 21-day course. I did a second 21-day course. And indeed, I weighed less. I went from 139 to 137. But I'll be darned if I didn't lose a single pound of fat. The same amount of fat mass. Now, there are error rates in the way DEXA scans are done. But I don't think I can blame that. I don't think I can blame that. So let's just take a look at this. My total body fat changed by 0.5%. And yes, it got worse. My total mass did improve, and my lean mass got worse. Well, that sucks. So you say, why? Why did that happen? What is going on that I I mean, like I said, I do a lot of things right. You see me on this show where I share my numbers, and I was looking at it saying, well, why haven't I lost any fat mass? Why haven't I lost any fat mass?
As you can see, the DEXA scans showed that even though she had lost a couple of pounds over the 10 months, her body fat had gone up slightly and her lean mass had gone down. So that means less muscle, even though she's doing CrossFit several times a week. So what's going on? My first thought was, is she eating enough protein? So I went looking for a video where she might describe her normal day of eating, and this is what I found.
Intentionally boring. I'm a physician. I run 4 businesses and I don't cook. So my day starts with CrossFit. Here is the first section, which was some rowing. We then hopped over to a bunch of wall balls. Next, nothing like a Turkish get-up first thing in the morning with a weight above your head. I just got done with my workout at CrossFit, and then 2 blocks away is breakfast. And today is not a fasting day, so we're gonna order.
Hi, thank you for choosing Starbucks. My name's Katie. What's yours?
And we'll take 1 double smoked bacon.
Okay.
And then 2 sets of the egg bites with bacon and Gouda cheese.
Anything else?
That's good. So, we've got food in hand, and most importantly, coffee. Now, we head home. Quick shower. I call it a Wonder Woman shower, meaning hurry up, spin around, get your clothes back on, and then head back this way, because my first meeting is in 1 hour and 6 minutes. Breakfast of Champions, especially when your keto, is keto egg bites from Starbucks. Not only do they make them and serve them with my coffee, but they are high fat, high protein, and good portion control. I add red bean salt, and I like them hot. Okay, I told you my menu was boring. And then they sear them. They were all out of those when we got there. So, thankfully it's a barbecue place. And we did burnt ends and some sausage. Let me show you that. There's the burnt ends, and this is the sausage.
Dr. Boz states that she doesn't cook. That in itself is a huge problem, because if you don't prepare your own food, you don't know what's in it. More on that soon. So what does Dr. Boz eat? As we just heard, Dr. Boz's breakfast consisted of some coffee, double smoked bacon, and egg bites with bacon and cheese from Starbucks. Now here's a list of the ingredients and nutritional information for those egg bites. Personally, I would expect nothing less from Starbucks. The ingredient list for these egg bites reads like a bit of a science experiment. If I was to make my own version of egg bites in my kitchen, which I have done before, they'd probably contain eggs, bacon, and cheese. So just 3 ingredients, but have a look at this list. So the ingredient list says cottage cheese, cultured non-fat milk, non-fat milk, whey, salt, maltodextrin, citric acid, carrageenan, mono and diglycerides, locust bean gum, guar gum, natural flavours, vitamin A palmitate, carbon dioxide, enzymes, eggs, which somehow contain eggs, citric acid and water. So I'm not sure what sort of eggs they are. Cheese blend, Monterey Jack cheese, which is pasteurized milk, cheese culture, salt and enzymes. The Gruyere cheese, pasteurized milk, cheese culture, salt and enzymes. Potato starch, powdered cellulose, natamycin, which is a natural mold inhibitor. Unsalted butter, pasteurized cream, natural flavors, uncured bacon, which it says has no nitrates or nitrates added except as naturally occurring in sea salt and celery juice powder. Pork, water, sea salt, cane sugar, cultured celery juice, cherry powder, rice starch, cornstarch, salt, white distilled vinegar, diluted with water, and hot sauce, which is vinegar, red pepper, and salt. And you'll see there that they contain 20 grams of total fat and 19 grams of total protein and 9 grams of carbohydrate. So there are quite a few additives in these Starbucks egg bites. And the truth is that no one really knows for sure what these chemicals do in our bodies. And when they're combined, then that kind of becomes even more questionable. But the one additive that really jumped out when I looked at this list was Carrageenan. And that was because I'd just recently seen a study that showed that carrageenan can potentially cause insulin resistance. So I'll pop that study up here. So as you can see, this says it's a carrageenan and insulin resistance in humans, a randomized double-blind crossover trial. The background says the potential impact of specific food additives common in Western diets on the risk of developing type 2 diabetes is not well understood. The study focuses on carrageenan, a widely used food additive known to induce insulin resistance and gut inflammation in animal models, and its effects on human health. Now, I think there's also been studies that show that it can contribute or cause different types of cancer as well, I believe. But anyway, at the moment we're talking about insulin. So the methods, it says that it was a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled crossover trial conducted at a university hospital metabolic study centre. It included 20 males aged 27.4 plus or minus 4.3 years with BMIs of 24.5 plus or minus 2.5 kilograms. And that was who participated. The intervention involved oral intake of carrageenan, 250 micrograms, or placebo in the morning and the evening, and each intervention lasted 2 weeks. The primary outcome measured was insulin sensitivity using oral glucose tolerance test and hyperinsulinemic euglycemic clamp. Additional endpoints included whole body and hepatic insulin sensitivity. MRI measured brain inflammation and insulin resistance, intestinal permeability via lactulose mannitol test and plasma zonulin levels, and gut microbiome composition. Overall insulin sensitivity did not show significant differences between the treatments, but interactions between BMI and treatment were observed. Overweight participants' carrageenan exposure resulted in lower whole body and hepatic insulin sensitivity. So that means the insulin sensitivity in their liver and their whole body went down. And there was a trend towards increased brain inflammation and elevated C-reactive protein, which is your whole body inflammation, and IL-6 levels compared to placebo. Additionally, carrageenan was associated with increased intestinal permeability, so gut became more leaky. In vitro natural killer cell activation and increased pro-inflammatory cytokine release were found after carrageenan exposure in the participants. The conclusions were that these findings suggest that carrageenan, a common food additive, may contribute to insulin resistance and subclinical inflammation in overweight individuals through pro-inflammatory mechanisms in the gut. Further investigation into the long-term health impacts of carrageenan and other food additives is warranted. Now, as you'll see, the study said that the overweight participants were made more insulin resistant by the carrageenan. However, the study was only 2 weeks in duration. So what happens over a longer period of time? Who knows? Now, I've been an avid label reader and additive avoider for many years. I became obsessed with eating as clean a diet as I could a long time before I started eating a carnivore diet. And it just makes sense to me that eating foods that contain all these additives could be a problem. Even just for the fact that Dr. Boz always talks about how she's still insulin resistant even after sticking with a ketogenic diet for close to a decade. Could consuming carrageenan be contributing to this? Maybe. The next thing that I noticed while watching this video was that she's pretty much eating on the run. She's busy, she's running 4 businesses and attending meetings all day. That constant stress and rushing and not having time to sit and eat her food with peace is going to affect the way her body processes the food and the way it behaves after eating. That's something that we all need to keep in mind, and yes, I do my best, but I could definitely be better when it comes to this. Lunch, she said, is often carnivore crisps, so dried meat, or sardines, and they're both great. Nothing to see there, except I'm wondering how much she eats and how much protein that actually equates to. Then came dinner, which was purchased from a restaurant. She said that they often get burger patties from that restaurant, but they didn't have their usual, so they bought burnt ends, which sounds and looks like it's some kind of chopped up or maybe fried or grilled beef, and they bought some kind of sausage. What's in a sausage? My thoughts are that at the very least, these are likely to be cooked in seed oils, having come from a restaurant, and the sausage probably contains additives. I would, however, be willing to bet that the ingredient list on these meats are much shorter than the Starbucks breakfast. But you might at this point be sitting there asking yourself why I'm harping on about these food additives and seed oils when the problem is that her body fat went up and her lean mass went down. The answer is simply because these food additives have unknown consequences in our bodies. As we've seen with just that little 2-week study on Carrageenan, there can be a metabolic impact when we consume these things regularly. What happens in our cells when we eat foods that contain these additives? Can our bodies build and repair and function in the same way as when we eat clean meat and eggs without the chemicals? The simple answer is that we don't know. Maybe for one person it's fine and the next it's not. It might just depend on our genetics or our state of health, as in the study on the effect of Carrageenan consumption and insulin resistance. Who knows? The other thing that springs into my mind when it comes to eating food from places like Starbucks is food quality. You know that they're going to be using the cheapest ingredients, right? They're in it to make the biggest profit they can, and so that's why they don't even use real eggs, or they've got stuff added to the eggs for some reason. We need quality protein and fat to build healthy bodies, not artificial eggs that have been formulated to provide the right amount of protein. Food quality is important. My other thoughts are that Dr. Boz often mentions portion control, and while that's obviously something that we will need to be mindful of, I still have to wonder if she's actually eating enough quality protein and animal fat to allow her body to build muscle. She goes to CrossFit several times a week and is doing a lot of sauna. While both of these are great for health, making sure our bodies have what they need to recover and rebuild is essential to get the best from these good habits. Now, Dr. Boz was blaming her ketones being too low and that she had not been diligent enough in the months between the 2 DEXA scans. And yep, that might be part of the problem, but I think that there's more to it. I don't think it's just that she allowed her ketones to get too low too often. From watching Dr. Boz's videos, my feeling is that she could do with reducing her workload and her stress levels. A bit more work-life balance could be a great start. The next thing would be to start cooking more meals at home, focusing on eating real food and avoiding the science experiments that they sell in places like Starbucks, because what they sell isn't real food. And then, of course, the last thing would be ensuring that she gets plenty of good quality animal protein and animal fats instead of just hitting macros. That would mean that her body always has what it needs after her workouts and saunas to repair and rebuild the muscle that between those 2 DEXA scans in her video was obviously being broken down and not replaced. The other thing that I am mindful of is that she does so much fasting. So because she's doing so much fasting, is she, again, getting enough protein into her diet? So that's my thoughts. What do you think? Have you had a similar issue where you've been losing muscle or lean tissue and gaining body fat when you thought it should be the other way around? Let me know in the comments. If you have any comments or questions, pop them down below and I'll get to them as soon as possible. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe because that helps my channel grow, and of course, like and share with anyone that you think might be interested. Thank you very much for watching today, and I will talk to you again another day. Goodbye for now.